Funny, but you've guessed it wrong. Let's focus on software development. I'm just laughing now. An artifact is one of the many kinds of tangible byproduct produced during the development of software. Some artifacts like use cases, class diagrams, other UML modules, requirements, design documents and so on help describe the function, architecture and design of software. Other artifacts are concerned with the process of development itself, such as project plans, business cases and risk assessments. Scrum's artifacts represent work or value in various ways that are useful in providing transparency and opportunities for inspection and adaptation. Artifacts defined by Scrum are specifically designed to maximize transparency of key information needed to ensure Scrum teams are successful in delivering a done increment. Backlogs are goals for iterations and releases. They improve product utility and increase visibility by enabling high-quality feedback regularly as the goals are met and reviewed. However, they also decrease time to market because the prioritized list enables negotiation of scope and early release with the most valuable functionality. Backlog generally refers to an accumulation over time of work waiting to be done or orders to be fulfilled. A burn-down chart is a graphical representation of work left to do versus time. When they track product development using the burn-down chart, teams can use a sprint burn-down chart and a release burn-down chart. A release burn-down chart shows the amount of work remaining toward the current release goal in terms of unfinished product backlog items. In a release burn-down chart, the vertical axis measures story points or ideal days remaining. The horizontal axis represents sprints. A sprint burn-down chart is designed to help the team monitor its progress and be a leading indicator of whether it will meet its commitment at the end of the sprint. The classic format requires teams to estimate the duration of each task in hours and on a daily basis to chart the total remaining hours for all uncompleted tasks. Scrum is purposely silent about all other documentation and artifact. This sometimes leads to the misunderstanding that agile teams don't need to do any documentation. I coach teams to produce only those artifacts that are really valuable to themselves and to others in the future. This cuts out worthless work and unnecessarily killing a forest. This is where it all starts. The product backlog is the heart of Scrum. The first step in Scrum is for the product owner to articulate the product vision. Eventually, this evolves into a refined and prioritized list of features called the product backlog. Things that the customer wants described using the customer terminology. We call these stories or sometimes just backlog items. This backlog exists and evolves over the lifetime of the product. It is the product roadmap. At any point, the product backlog is the single definitive view of everything that could be done by the team ever in order of priority. Only a single product backlog exists. This means the product owner is required to make prioritization decisions across the entire spectrum, representing the interest of stakeholders and influenced by the team. Let's describe the product's backlog attributes. First, ID. This is to avoid losing track of stories when we rename them. 2. Story. For example, see the list of accounts. Clear enough so that developers and the product owner understand approximately what we are talking about and clear enough to distinguish from other stories. 3. Priority. Normally I tend to avoid the term priority since priority 1 is the typically considered the highest priority, which gets ugly if you later on decide that something else is even more important. 4. Estimation. Ask the team with how much members and after how many days will come out with a finished, demonstrable, testable, releasable implementation. All of these words means definition of done. If the answer is with 3 guys locked into a room it will take approximately 4 days, then the initial estimate is 12 story points. The important thing is not to get the absolute estimates correct. A 2-point story should take 2 days. But the relative estimate is correct. A 2-point story should require about half as much work as a 4-point story. First group refers to user stories. The second is purely internal. Because there is really no difference between a bug and a new feature, each describes something different that the user wants. Bugs are also on the product backlog. An example of technical work would be upgrade all developers' workstation to Windows 7. An example of knowledge acquisition could be a product backlog item about researching various JavaScript libraries and making a selection. One of the myths about Scrum is that it prevents you from writing detailed specifications. And really, it is up to the product owner and team to decide how much detail is required, and this will vary from one backlog item to the next, depending on the inside of the team and other factors. State what is important in the least amount of space necessary. In other words, do not describe every possible detail of an item. Just make clear what is necessary for it to be understood. First, requirements are emergent, meaning we don't and cannot know upfront every detail about what we want in a product. Therefore, the product backlog is a living document and requires constant grooming to keep it current and useful. Second, user stories stay short. In nearly all cases, it is sufficient and generally preferable to create and maintain the product backlog as a set of stories written on physical cards. This way you control the shortness. Third, product owner prioritize the backlog, usually just the release backlog subset, to maximize return of investment by choosing items of high value with low effort, or secondarily to reduce some major risks. 4. The development team is responsible for all estimates. The product owner may influence the development team by helping understand and select trade-offs, but the people who will perform the work make the final estimate. 5. Scrum does not define techniques for expressing or prioritizing items in the product backlog, and it does not define an estimation technique. A common technique is to estimate in terms of relative size, factoring in effort, complexity, and uncertainty, using a unit of story points or simple points. 6. If the product owner has a technical background, he might add stories such as add indexes to events table. Why does he want this? The real underlying goal is probably something like speed up the search event form in the back office. It may turn out that indexes weren't the bottleneck causing the form to be slow. It may be something completely different. The team is normally better suited to figure out how to solve something, so the product owner should focus on business goals. When I see technical oriented stories like this, I normally ask the product owner a series of questions like, but why? Until we find the underlying goal. Then we rephrase the story in terms of the underlying goal. Speed up the search event form in the back office. The original technical description ends up as a note. Indexing the event table might solve this. Also, the product owner can make the refinements of the product backlog by using some of the right techniques. Most teams will know the sprint backlog as the task board, which is the physical representation of the list of work they have committed to do during the current sprint. The task board is an example of a Kanban, a Japanese word meaning sign or visible signal. It tells the whole team and anyone else what work they have planned and their current status. The sprint backlog includes 4 items which are as follows: the list of user stories within the sprint in order of priority, the relative effort estimates for each user story, the tasks necessary to develop each user story, the effort in hours to complete each task. At the task level, you estimate the number of hours each task will take to complete. Since your sprint has a specific length and there's a set number of available working hours, you can use the time each task takes to determine whether the task will fit into your sprint. Each task should take 1 day or less for the development team to complete. Just remember this. Tasks in agile projects should take a day or less to complete for 2 reasons. The first reason is pure basic psychology. People are motivated to get to the finish line. If you have a task that you know you can complete quickly, you are more likely to finish it on time, just to check it off your to-do list. The second reason is that one-day tasks provide good red flags that the project might be veering off course. It's a good practice that the Scrum Master should take the opportunity to investigate what might be keeping the team member from finishing work. If a development team member reports that he or she is working on the same task for more than 1 or 2 days, that team member probably has a roadblock. I've experimented with different formats for the sprint backlog, including Jira, Excel, and a physical task board on the wall. In the beginning we used Excel mostly. There are many publicly available Excel templates for sprint backlog, including auto-generated burn-down charts and stuff like that. In this slide you can see the list of specifications for a sprint backlog. Although the key here is that product owner cannot make any changes to the amount of work that needs to be done until the end of sprint. All the items will be marked as done or as increment of done by using the following definitions. increment equal sum of product backlog items that are completed and usable. Definition of done, sum of criteria that mark work completed. Also, it's the duty of Scrum Master role that need to take care of the impediments, like a list of things that are preventing the team from progressing or improving. Example, computers need upgraded or computers is not working at a moment in time. Because sprint and its backlog are very important, you can use an effective format for the sprint backlog like a wall-based task board.